Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Monday, aka League Passamageddon. If you have to ask the question right now, I wasn't sure. I didn't fully commit to League Passamageddon. I hadn't said it out loud just yet, Keith. So that was kind of a on the fly sort of testing. It felt okay. It felt all right. I don't know if it was the home run, but League Passamageddon. Basically, if you were a fan of any NBA team and you're wondering, does my team play tonight? The answer is yes. Yes, they do. Hence, League Passamageddon. Keith, does it work? Does that land?
I think you rattled it in. Yeah, I don't know that it swished right through.
Yeah,
but I think you rattled it in. But yeah, they did this a couple years ago. On election day eve, I guess is the best way to put that.
Yeah.
The NBA is completely off on election day. There's a number of reasons. Number one reason being go vote, right? That's what they want people to do. But there's also some arenas are used as polling places, and there's all kinds of stuff behind it. But so what they did this year, they brought back something they did a couple years ago. All 30 teams play. So there are 15 games tipping off every 15 minutes, starting at 7 p.m. Eastern, all the way through 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So your kind of earliest start time and your latest start time for a weeknight game are intact, but there'll be a game every 15 minutes, which is a lot of fun because you get to kind of catch up and see a lot of the endings of games because they're all staggered finishes and the like, and everybody plays. So it's a little bit of a drink it from the fire hose, but it's but it'll be fun. We'll have a fun night with it, and then a basketball list day, or an NBA list day tomorrow. I think there's some college hoops, which college hoops tips off today. Already tipped off today. There were a couple afternoon games out there, so that's also going on out there in the world of basketball right now.
Exciting time. Also exciting. I didn't put it on our show notes here. We've got, if we have time, we got a lot to cover today, but if we have time, I've got a little scheduled nonsense we'll keep it for the end though. And if we need to get to it tomorrow, we'll get to it tomorrow. We'll see how quickly we get through because we got a lot to talk about, but there is scheduled nonsense coming
to it because we're going to need to lift this show up.
We will
in the second half because just everybody understand this show is the topics we're getting into. The next several of them, none of them are good, and there's nothing good about any of them. So hopefully, but we cover the good, we cover the bad, we cover it all, and mix it up. And there you have the facts of life, I guess. I don't know.
I was not
trying to keep it light.
I was not expecting to hear the theme song from the Facts of Life anytime soon.
That just shows our age.
Back in the 80s. All right, let's rip the Band-Aid off here. So Joel Embiid, altercation with a reporter over the weekend. He was not happy about some things that were written, specifically that were written about his brother who tragically passed away, as well as his son who was named after his brother. Keith, from what was written, did you think Embiid was justified? I guess we shouldn't say justified to put hands on the reporter because that should never happen, but justified to be upset in terms of being angry.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. As Joel Embiid put it. So given a little bit of a timeline of events here, right? It came out, Joel Embiid wasn't going to play for a while. Reporter wrote an article that basically said Embiid is not living up to the things he himself said he wanted to live up to. And in that, he invoked Embiid's, as you said, his deceased brother, and as well as Embiid's young son, who is named for his brother. Embiid, then, I don't know if it was the day after or a couple days after, he did an unscheduled kind of sit down with the media where he basically said, look, you want to rip me and you want to rip me for my play? Do it. Have at it. But I'm not doing this. You are not going to mention my brother, my son. Don't mention my family.
Yeah.
Then take it out a couple more days. They play this weekend, and Embiid did not play, but was in the locker room. Reporters allowed in the locker room after the game. They were kind of queuing up to meet with, I think it might have been Tyrese Maxey, whose locker is right next to Joel Embiid's. And Joel Embiid saw the reporter who wrote this. His name is Marcus Hayes from the Philadelphia Inquirer. And Embiid approached him and pretty much, I guess, let him have it. Like, really, from all the reporting that's out there from various outlets that were live and saw this play out, he really was screaming and yelling at him. Hayes reportedly tried to apologize. Embiid said something along the lines of, "I don't want your apology." Then Embiid said something else to just kind of, I think, in general, like, "I don't really care what reporters think of me." Some of the reporting is then Hayes said, "Yeah, but clearly you do." And then Embiid then kind of got fired up again. And this is where it gets real murky, right? Most of the reports are he open hand shoved, pushed him up around the shoulder, collarbone. Others have described it as he threw a punch that didn't land. We don't know. There's been, to my knowledge, no video released of this that anybody have, which is also a little odd considering generally by the time you get in there to talk to a player, almost someone has a phone going, but maybe they were like, "Hey, we're not quite ready yet," because you try to be respectful, right?
If Maxey wasn't sitting there yet, like if they were recording, like that's usually when, from the scrums I've been in, like everybody picks their phones up right when the player comes around. So that could be the case.
So that could be the case. We don't know. But now it's a mess. They were separated, obviously. Then from there, things kind of got out the way they got out, and there's been all kinds of stuff. So that basically breaks down the incident. So now back to your question.
Oh, yeah.
Of was Embiid justified in being angry? Well, I'll restate again 100%. One of the early lessons that I learned, and I didn't really need to learn it, I just kind of knew it, was unless you are invoking a player's family for positive reasons,
right,
or for reasons that are not positive, but are the root of your story, meaning there's something going on legally with a player, with a family member, or something like that. You don't bring family into it. It's got nothing to do with anything. You don't bring it in. If it was, hey, my motivation is playing for, I can't remember who it is now, but somebody just had a baby and they're like, I felt like so much energy going through me, like positive energy. That's different, right? Because that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. Sometimes it's even fair to be like, yeah, this guy's struggling because he told us I'm not sleeping because I have a newborn at home or whatever. But again, that's the player told you. You're using that, as the crux of something. Just trying to make an equivalence that clearly failed because Marcus Hayes has now removed this from his article and rewritten the lead to his article. This is completely out of there. And he openly says, like, yeah, I misstepped. Thanks for all the feedback that everyone provided. I'll learn from this and whatever else he said.
Right.
Embiid had every right to be angry. But you can't put hands on people. Like that's where it kind of all falls apart, right? You just can't. I get it. We've all been in places where you want to punch somebody right in the face, right? Like we've all been there. You just can't, right? It's deserved or not. Like it's, I always say, one of my favorite lines from The Wire is deserve got nothing to do with it. Right. Because it's that's just, you just can't do that.
Yeah. You can't walk, even if you're upset with something somebody said, unless there's an imminent threat against you or something like that, you can't put hands on somebody. You can't attack someone. And so I would expect, obviously the league is investigating the situation. Keith, we haven't seen Joel Embiid yet this season. It may now be a little while longer till we see him, because you'd have to imagine that the NBA may very well issue a suspension here for Joel Embiid. So what are you expecting as the NBA investigates and as they get involved with this?
Yeah, I honestly don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
This is pretty unprecedented. This is different than a lot of other things. When the league cracks down on guys for fighting in games, that is one thing, right? That is in the context of being in a competitive environment where tempers will flare, things will happen. Every year, somebody gets into it on the court at least once or twice, and there's suspensions that follow. The things that have happened off the court, drug related, that's so completely different. And there are some generally prescribed punishments related to that. Things that have happened off the court, domestic violence wise, completely different. That's something that is very gray. There's no black and white there. That seems to be very much a case by case situation. And we're going to talk about one of those in a moment here too. Then you have the idea of, I think the closest thing I could come up with was Patrick Beverley getting the 4-game suspension for throwing the ball at the fans. That was also at fans in the arena. And it's not really
media.
the same thing.
Right.
So I don't know what to expect other than I expect Joel Embiid is going to be suspended. I expect the suspension will be contingent upon whatever amount of games will start after he is cleared to return.
Yes.
So if he's cleared to return in game 20, game 21 will start a suspension. Or excuse me, game 20 will start a suspension if he's cleared to return in game 20. I don't think there'll be any, well, we're going to count it now, even though he's not ready to play yet. The league has gotten more specific about that. So I really don't know how to anticipate this because we've never been there. Now, I want to go back too and say this. If this was just Joel Embiid and Marcus Hayes said this to him in the street and Joel Embiid popped him, hey man, run your mouth. Sometimes when you run your mouth enough, you deserve to get hit. That's not what this was. This was as in poor taste as it absolutely was what he wrote. This was in a professional context that this all played out. And that's where kind of, to me, the league's going to have to set a little bit of a precedent here with, hey, we can't have this. We cannot have these kind of things. Now, accountability on Marcus Hayes, because people are, well, what's the accountability there? The NBA can't really do anything to him beyond you're not credentialed anymore to cover the league. And maybe that does happen. That could be a thing that happens. We don't know. We haven't heard anything about that. Sixers may decide to do that completely on their own. We don't know, right? So but that's it. The league can't fire him. He doesn't work for the NBA. They can't fine him. He doesn't work for the NBA. His newspaper, his outlet has already said they're going to they want to see this through and handle this themselves. So my guess is there's going to be some form of action that they take. This just gets very messy. I by no means if the NBA had the ability to suspend this guy too, suspend him too for what he did for his part in this. But they don't. There's limited things they can do. It's kind of like if you make me mad, I can't fire you from Lakers Nation. I'm not your boss. I have nothing to do with you there. It's, people have to understand there's only so far. But what the NBA can do is they can punish Joel Embiid. He is an employee of the NBA. And that's ultimately what will come down here at some level.
And we'll just see, when ultimately that happens. The NBA, they're going to conduct their investigation. And like I said, not great. Not a great start to the 76ers season as they're sitting near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. And now you've got this situation with Joel Embiid on top of a lot of frustration of the fact that he's not been on the court. And same thing with Paul George, who, by the way, is supposed to make his debut tonight. We'll talk a little more about it in a minute. But all right, let's move on to our next lovely story here. Jaxson Hayes. Jaxson Hayes is now reopened, or the investigation into him is reopened for an incident that happened in 2021 when he was a player for the New Orleans Pelicans. Footage has come out of a situation between Hayes and his then girlfriend. Back then, all we knew was that police were called after there was a disturbance. Ultimately, it ended up with a stun gun being used on Jaxson Hayes. There was footage of that was out all over the place at the time. Hayes, accepted a punishment. I had to do a bunch of community service and things of that nature. And there were other things as well. But now there's actually footage from inside the house of the two arguing, and it's not good. It's not good. So now the NBA is reopening their investigation. I'm not going to play the footage here or anything like that. TMZ had it. Everybody that wants to see it, I'm sure, can go find it, but it's not good. So now the NBA reopens this investigation, and we'll see if now that this footage is out of what was actually happening inside the house and how Hayes was acting, if that changes the way the NBA decided to punish, which they decided not to punish him back in 2021. They ultimately decided that the legal ramifications that he was facing would be enough. Perhaps the NBA changes that, and maybe we're looking at a suspension or something else here for Jaxson Hayes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple things have changed. Obviously, one, the existence and sharing of this footage. That's the first thing that changes the situation. Second is the league's in a little bit of a different place now with things like this than they were previously. There used to be a lot of, I don't want to say turn the other way, but it was a lot of, well, this is already being handled legally. This isn't something for us to be involved with. That's changed in a big, big way. Miles Bridges obviously was a big part of that. I fully get and respect the opinion of those who feel like that didn't go far enough, that Miles Bridges shouldn't even be in the league at all. Okay, I understand where you're coming from. I quite frankly, I find some of it hard to argue against you on. But the reality is he is in the league, and that's where it is. With Jaxson Hayes, we're now, 3 years later from the original time this all played out, right? If my math is correct on this, I believe. So we're just in a different place now. It's a different league. They handle these things differently. So I expect, if it is found to be credible and everything else, which I believe it is, I don't know for sure on this, but if it is, there's probably going to be some further punishment coming here, and it may be a pretty stiff one, pretty big one. There was also reporting in the story that I don't know if this was out there originally, one of the officers, there was something happened with that officer in Jaxson Hayes where it was that officer then didn't show up and was found to have received payments from Hayes. So the implication being they were paid off to just go away from that. So I don't know exactly what that whole story entails or anything there, but none of this is good. This is all bad and bad for Hayes, the Lakers, and the NBA.
Yeah, not good at all. So again, another negative story here that we had to get into. Let's move on to the next one because I don't know where this is ultimately going to go, but the NBA will make their decision on Jaxson
Generally,
Hayes.
these things play out relatively quickish, so hopefully this is not going to be something where we're giving updates on this 3 and 4 or 5, 6, 7 days from now. Hopefully we'll get some resolution here, but
yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move on. Gregg Popovich going to miss some time due to what's now being characterized as a health issue. He was been out sick. Nobody knows what the details are right now, or at least that's not publicly available, what exactly is going on with Gregg Popovich, but he's going to be away from the Spurs for a bit while he recovers from whatever it is. I believe, Keith, I'm trying to make sure I get the wording correct. There was a medical situation with him before a game, and now obviously he's going to take some time to recover. And once again, if we had more details on exactly what was going on, we would talk about it. But all we know right now is Gregg Popovich is going to be away from the Spurs for some time.
Yeah, and I believe it's Mitch Johnson, if I'm correct, is going to. He filled in already. He will continue to fill in for Popovich while he's out. It is Mitch Johnson. Don Harris, who's a guy who's covered sports for a very long time, he did have a tweet that said Pop is going to be okay, which is, at least, if we're looking for silver linings here and good news, like that is, something there. But yeah, whatever's going on, he's got a health issue and, he's out. And I mean, and the reality is Pop he's not a young guy, right? I think sometimes we forget that because he's doing what he does, but he is, let me double check this. Yeah, he's 75. I thought he was 75. I didn't want to add any years on to him if I didn't have to, but that's getting up there to be living an NBA lifestyle where you're in and out of different cities every night and, up till, all hours of the morning and everything else. So we obviously wish all the best to Gregg Popovich, and hopefully, whatever he's going through is a, quick and speedy recovery, and we see him back prowling the sidelines here very, very soon.
as you mentioned, prowling studio
Prowling,
stew
yeah.
here is he is
Right.
making his presence felt on this show. I should have filled his food bowl before starting the show. That's what it is. He's like, come feed me right now. Stop
And the
talking
time
about
change does
basketball.
not help with
Oh
animals.
no.
Like,
Oh
it's
my gosh.
brutal.
Animals do not understand the time change, nor should they. But
Yep.
man, our dogs, they're looking at us like, what are you what is going on? It's dinner time. Why are we not being fed?
Yep.
I tried to explain it to them, but they did not. They were not receptive.
Yeah, we're on multiple dogs that we've tried to explain it to, and it's yet to sink in.
Does not work. Does not work. All right, Keith, Jaylen Brown with a hip injury. I mean, the Celtics have played some great basketball, but what's the latest here on Jaylen Brown's situation?
Yeah, this started out with some like hip tightness, was how it was initially described. Then he missed a game, then missed another game. Now he's going to miss the game in Atlanta as well. I guess it'll be his second straight game missed. But he didn't look right in the first game in Charlotte. They played one of those baseball series where the Celtics played the Hornets 2 nights in a row. The big takeaway from the first game was Grant Williams, just for whatever reason, in the open floor, trucked Jason Tatum. And like
that was weird.
Really seems to understand why, but he did. But anyway, Jaylen Brown didn't look great in that game. He did not have his usual explosiveness on a couple of drives to the basket. You could see he just couldn't really get up there to finish. So now what's happened is Brown is missed the second game in Charlotte. How we know this is actually somewhat serious, he's missing a game in Atlanta, which is his hometown. And he doesn't like to miss games in his hometown, as no player does, right? They all want to play in their hometown. So, but he's going to miss that game, and he's set to have further testing done when they get back to Boston. So not great, right? Not very good news here for Jaylen Brown and the Celtics. But hopefully, this is one of those things where it gets caught early enough they can do what they need to do and manage it and get him back to where he needs to be. But it's just something we're going to keep an eye on here, because this was a lot when he was first out on the second night of a back-to-back against the same team, and quite frankly, a team that Boston did beat without him and should have been able to beat without him anyway. You're like, is this real, or is this like he's resting, but this is the reason we're giving? But given how he looked in the prior game, then missing that game, now missing the game in Atlanta, it's got Celtics Nation a little bit worried right now.
Yeah. Understandably. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we get good news on Jaylen Brown. All right, let's get into the actual good news.
Yeah, let's do some
positive stuff here. Yeah. Paul George should be finally making his 76ers debut tonight, and Steph Curry was upgraded his status. He could potentially play tonight. Now, it seems more questionable, and I think he is actually questionable, but a little bit more skeptical, I should say, about whether or not Steph Curry actually steps onto the floor tonight. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Hopefully he does. Paul George, though, sounds like it's a go. We're going to see him play tonight, barring some sort of crazy Kevin Durant-esque, I tweak my ankle in the layup line type of situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of like the last stage, I guess, because there was no reporting after shoot around, assuming they even had one. I think they were scheduled to have one that he's not playing, and we haven't. Now it'll probably be just, he's going to go through his pregame workout. As long as everything's good, he'll play. So that's great news for Paul George. Incredible news for the Sixers. Quite frankly, it's really good news for Tyrese Maxey, who could use a running mate. Like, he's just been doing everything. And I made this point on a radio spot last week, because they challenged, but isn't Tyrese Maxey going to play a lot anyway? It's like, he is, but there's a big difference between playing a lot and playing a lot when you have to do everything.
Yep.
Offensively. Like, and that's 100%. Where he was at. So I'm hopeful this will lift him. So we'll see. Who are they playing tonight? The Suns tonight. It's an NBA TV game too. So 10:15 start again. Every 15 minutes we have a game tonight. So the
NBA, Adam Silver is right now just saying, "Oh, thank God that Paul George is actually playing," because we saw what happened. It was Sixers versus Bucks to open up the season. Oh no, wait, never mind. It's not really. It's going to be no Embiid, no Chris Middleton, no Paul George, all that, and everybody just went, meh, whatever. We're not going to watch that then. So thank goodness.
That is still the Bucks' only win.
Oh my God,
they've lost the other 5 games they've played.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's and the one they lost at the buzzer, Donovan Mitchell hit it. Dame hit his Dame time shot, and then Donovan Mitchell came back and one-upped him and hit it on the next possession. But still, Things are not good in Milwaukee right now, Keith. Things are not good.
Just no. So they're 1-5. Here are their next 4 games. Okay.
Uh-huh.
You have at the Cavs, who just beat them. That's tonight. Versus the Jazz. That should be a win. The Jazz are the only team without a win in the league. At the Knicks. That's pretty tough. And then versus the Celtics next Sunday afternoon. So not great. Not great. We could be looking at them with, a handful more losses in there. 3 more, maybe like 2-8 through their first 10 games. Not where you want to be.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And that's why there's already chatter about, is Giannis going to be in Milwaukee for the remainder of his career, or is that suddenly going to change? But that's a tale for another day. Let's get into this. Keith,
we skipped Steph. Steph.
Oh, no. Well, I mentioned that he's questionable. He may come back, but a big upgrade, though, for him to go from, oh, no, he's out to now he's questionable. Usually when you see that kind of an upgrade, oftentimes, like right before a game, it'll jump up to he goes from questionable to probable, and then, oh, yeah, he's playing. So hopefully that's what happens here.
If not tonight, probably later in the week. It sounds like he's pretty close, which is good news. And the Warriors off to a good start, but their schedule's about to turn. They're starting. They're getting into some much tougher teams than the ones they've played so far.
All right. Speaking of Steph, Adam Silver is reportedly talking to Steph Curry about trying to figure out an all-star game format change. The all-star game will be in Golden State this year. Keith, we've talked about this. Well, we've lamented this. I plan a vacation every year during the all-star break because it's a disaster. The all-star game itself, the players don't want to play. And we've talked about this at length. The bottom line is, if Steph Curry can find a way to solve that, everything fixes itself. If you find a way for the players to want to play the all-star game and get them to compete, everything else takes care of itself. Right now, that's not the case. Right now, you get no defense. You get half-hearted attempts. You get a few dunks. The All-Star Saturday night is way more thrilling than the All-Star game itself, to the point where, Keith, you and I have talked about, should they just scrap the All-Star game? So they've tried different formats. They tried the Elam ending. They've tried team captains and all sorts of little gimmicks and things like that in the past. Nothing has really stuck. We've gotten occasional bursts where you get an outlier, fun All-Star game. We got one, 3-4 years ago, I think it was. We got a pretty exciting one with the Elam ending, but for whatever reason, they've not been able to find a permanent solution to make the All-Star game the event that it should be, with this many great players on the court at the same time. So we'll see if anything changes, permanently here, or if this winds up being kind of a one-off. But the All-Star game has been kind of an eyesore for the majority of the last decade plus in the NBA. Yeah,
I mean, it's to the point where I've openly said all I care about the game portion is that no one gets hurt.
Exactly. And that's what the players care about too.
Yeah.
And they should.
Yeah. None of it matters. Like this, I get it. Everybody wants this to be super competitive. I just don't know how we get there. You're going to have to throw an obscene amount of money in front of these guys and be like, then, and even then, I don't even know how much it would have to be to get guys to like fully care. Cause you do get something for winning the All-Star game versus losing it. I know people have suggested a USA versus the world format. Part of the reason I'm not in favor of that is I don't want, and I'm going to openly say either side, because it could be, we're getting damn near the point where there might be more world deserving All-Stars than USA deserving All-Stars. I don't want it to be, we had to put, player X in there because, they're not, hey, we had to get somebody else.
Jamal McGlure, because we didn't have any other centers, right?
I was going to say we had to put Tristan Thompson on the team because we needed one more, Canadian on the roster, one more guy on the world team. Like that's where it all falls apart for me, because while the game may not matter, being named an All-Star still does. That part is still important to legacies. Quite frankly, it's important to some contracts. They're very, very few, getting less and less. Spoiler alert, teaser. I'm writing a whole piece all about how bonuses are not as much of a thing in the NBA as they used to be, and why that is. And using a couple complicated cases, one of which will be very interesting, I think, to Lakers fans, because it's a player I know they have their eyes on trade target wise. But more to come on that. That'll come out
Okay.
later this week. But yeah, I don't know how you fix it. Like I really don't. Like I have like no good ideas for this,
Yeah.
which is
At the
like,
risk of turning, see, here's the problem with what I think maybe could happen or should happen is that you're turning two games into one. And I think from a financial math situation, that probably doesn't make the most sense. But if you want the All-Star game to be competitive, if you want it to be exciting, take the NBA Cup final and put it on All-Star weekend.
yeah,
And
that would
just
be good.
and just scrap the All-Star game. Say, you know what? Where you have to know when to quit. You have to know when there is no more. You're not going to get blood from the stone. There's no way that
Yep.
you're going to make this happen. And I don't know that we're at the point right now, but I do know, just looking at the situation, I think there's a number of players who think, okay, yeah, I really want to play in this, especially if it's their first All-Star game. These dudes who have been there like 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it is, however many All-Star games they've made, they hit a point where they're like, you know what? The rest of the guys on my team are all right now in sandals and flip-flops, and they're going to a tropical island with their families for the next week. And I got to go and do all this media and play in a game that I don't really want to play in. And yes, it's an honor and all of that, but I could really use a break right now. I think there's that kind of permeating the All-Star game as well, that these guys are like, man, I kind of want to be spending a little bit. It's a long season. I'd like to spend some time with my family right now. So there's that too, where on top of the game doesn't matter, on top of if any one of these guys turns an ankle, that could be the end of their team season effectively. Yep. So there's a lot of reason why the All-Star game is the way it is and why the NBA should want to solve it. But I do wonder if the ultimate decision needs to be, we can't solve it. And if we want competitive basketball, let's put the NBA Cup final on All-Star weekend.
Yeah, I actually like that. What I would like to see is maybe what you do is you still name All-Stars.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
They all get in on Friday. You do all your media stuff Friday with the All-Stars. Saturday, add a couple events to Saturday. Maybe all the All-Stars play a game of knockout or something, sure, right? Where there's a little bit of competition, but no one has to go too hard. You can just kind of go through it a little bit and have some fun. Maybe throw more guys in the 3-point contest. And then you get, hey, could Rudy Gobert, what does he look like in the 3-point contest? Right? We probably have a lot of fun with that. Hey, maybe you put Stephen Curry in the dunk contest, right? What does that look like? Right. The problem is nobody wants to do anything. We're going to look stupid.
Well, and that's it. Like fans, I had a bunch of people already say when this was being discussed online, people say they need to add a one-on-one competition. The players will never do it. They will never do it.
Nope. Maybe you take the 3 teams of 12 and you break them up in a bunch of 3-on-3 teams and you do like a mini 3-on-3 tournament or something where they don't have to go quite as hard, but maybe there would be a little bit more competition. I don't know. It's the game portion of it stinks, and unless you get really radical. But I'm with you. Just switch it up, make the end season the NBA Cup. Sorry, I'm not using the right terminology. Make that final. Yeah, I'm with you. Then you could blow it out, right? Because then you do Thursday could be the semis. Do your stuff, or maybe Friday's the semis. Then do your Saturday night stuff, and then Sunday you have the final game, and you'll play that way. And that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Let's get
what we get now.
Absolutely. All right, let's go here. Adam Silver talks expansion. So he talked about why there would be certain US-based cities that would be ahead of Mexico City if and when the NBA does expand. He also said that he thinks most likely it's going to be 2 teams. He wants to bring in 2 teams at the same time, keep things balanced, 16 teams per conference, and go that route. Keith, I mean, to me, reading between the lines, based on the way all the conversations have gone so far, and he's saying, we'll talk to a bunch of cities. We've had a bunch of cities interested, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be Vegas and Seattle. Like we've known it for years now. It's going to be Vegas and Seattle. I think the only reason why he's mentioning other cities and teams or a bunch of cities have been under or will be under consideration, all that is just making sure they get the right deal from Vegas and Seattle.
Yeah. There's a few things from this. One, this came because the Mexico City game was over the weekend. The Heat and the Wizards played there. So he was asked, could there be a team here? And what about expansion? Joe Varden of The Athletic did an article where he talked a lot to Adam Silver about expansion, and you're absolutely right. He talked a bunch of logistical stuff, why Mexico City's going to be tough to pull off and all that, but did say, hey, if it was up to me, I'd love to have a team here at some point. But for the bigger takeaway for me for expansion as a general topic was it feels like every time he talks this, he like drops one more breadcrumb.
Yeah.
Right. And this one felt like I think we should add 2 teams. That felt like what the breadcrumb was, right? Like all right, so that we're already to that point. And to your point is, one, they're not going to tell any cities they're out because otherwise, if it's Vegas and Seattle, they look at each other and they're like, hey, let's kind of collude here and set a hard line at, $4 billion or whatever. We're not going above this number. But if you do that and then, in flies, I don't know, Louisville, which is in the mix and says, here's 6. Well, all right, see you later, Seattle or Las Vegas. Hey, Vancouver, you want to get involved? What they're going to do, too, is cast a very wide net, find out who is involved, because what happens next time we want to expand.
Yeah.
Who was really there? And here's the thing. If they're looking for $6 billion per team, which seems like the marker they're trying to hit, if you get that, and let's say there's 4, 6 cities that are like, hey, we'll do $6 billion, that can start to be a conversation changer for a lot of the other owners where it's like, maybe it doesn't hurt so bad to split this media rights pie a couple additional ways. But 2 teams are coming. To me, it's just a matter of where. I think we pretty much know that one, but mostly when. It's no longer a matter of if. It is a matter of when. When are these teams going to come into play? And few years probably is my guess. I'm still thinking maybe towards the end of this year, league year, we get the announcement, then a year to prepare, and then they come in a year after that. That would be my guess.
There's a lot of logistics behind bringing an NBA team in, so all that takes time to get sorted out. Yeah. All right, Keith, we've got this 2025 cap space projections.
Yeah.
Who is expected to have spending power this coming summer?
I'm gonna let you get. How many teams do you think I am project? So these are my projections, to be fair, and the article is up on Spot Track. How many teams do you think I project to have cap space next summer right now?
I'm going to say, because I don't recall next season's free agent class being a particularly strong one. I could be misremembering on some of that. I've been so focused on the past summer.
It's not. You're right.
Typically, teams have cap space when there's players to spend it on. And when teams know there's not going to be players to spend it on, they don't have cap space. So I'm going to say there's going to be like 5 teams that have significant cap space.
You overshot it by over double.
Really?
2? The Brooklyn Nets and the Washington Wizards, the only 2 teams right now. Now, and I wrote this in the article, this can and will change. Yeah. Teams will make moves approaching the trade deadline where they'll shed salary. There'll probably be an unexpected trade or 2 that happens, and maybe somebody else jumps in there. But I broke it all down. Cap space teams, like I said, only 2. Brooklyn had a little over, almost 41 million. Washington, 27, 28 million, in that range. Brooklyn, that's not even enough to sign a veteran max, next summer. So just kind of give you a sense. And if anybody's like, well, why isn't the cap going up? Isn't the new TV deal? Well, you got a couple things at play. One, the new TV deal is capped at 10, or the cap is capped at growing 10%.
Cap.
Yeah, cap, 10%. So it's not going to explode like it did in years past. And we are in a spot where teams have committed so much money through extensions and re-signings that just nobody really projects to have cap space. Cap's expected to go up $14 million from this year to next year, which is roughly the amount of like a mid-level exception. And that's still only enough that it puts those 2 teams. A couple swing teams here and there could definitely go the cap space route. I don't necessarily project it right now, but that's kind of where we're at.
That makes, especially because I know we had our eyes on Houston, but then they signed those extensions for Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. So that makes sense. But Yeah, not a lot of cap room, but that
No.
could mean good things for the trade market too, because
Yeah.
that means teams aren't going to say, "Oh well, no cap space, we're not going to try to improve," unless you're the Lakers. Otherwise, you are going to do everything you can, and that might mean hitting the trade market as well.
Yep. Trade market, sign and trades. Whenever the league is largely capped out, sign and trades become much more of a thing. We saw a few of those this summer, which are quite honestly, those are more fun than straight free agent signing. Straight free agent signing, it impacts like 2 teams and 1 player, right? It's like, I mean, those are still cool to break down and talk about. And sometimes you already know the guy's leaving. So then it's like really only impacts his new team and in the player. When it's a trade, there you have all kinds of opportunities. So they're a little bit more fun to break down, but we did those because we always want to start laying it out because you want to be able to have a baseline to work off of. Well, this team, maybe they're thinking about doing this to free up cap space. And it's like, oh, they're actually going to be over the cap anyway. So there must be another thing behind it. Now, what will happen is creating wiggle room under the aprons, under the tax, creating room to be able to do sign and trades and all this other stuff. That's more important than it's ever been in the league. So you're going to see a lot more of that coming. We skipped a whole story too. I completely forgot about it. The Knicks signed Ariel Hukporti from his 2-way deal to a standard deal. It's going to be a 2-year standard deal. Second year is going to be a team option. So the Knicks are going to be in a spot where my guess is what will happen is they didn't have any recourse but a 2-year deal. So this way they can decline that team option, make him a restricted free agent, and work out a longer-term deal with him in the offseason. So that's one. And then they're going to sign Matt Ryan. Now, what I found very interesting was all we heard is they're going to sign Matt Ryan to a deal. We didn't hear standard deal, 2-way deal, whatever it's going to be. But the Knicks are definitely going to sign Matt Ryan. He's got 1 year, 2-way eligibility left. Could be going in on that, or this could be one where they say, all right, we got to fill. They have to fill by tomorrow their 14th spot because they've already been at 14 days without, guys, and that's the longest you can go. So they're going to have to fill that spot tomorrow. So keep that in mind as we go. My guess is Matt Ryan gets a non-guaranteed 1-year contract, much like Jaylen Noel signed with the Pelicans over the weekend. I don't think we talked about that one either. That's just, those are like pseudo 10-day deals where it's like, hey, we need a body, come in and jump in here for a little bit. The Thunder have been playing those games a little bit with Alex Reese and Malevi Leon's, like they're doing some stuff. So, but that's where it's at. And Stu wants fed, man.
Stu does want fed. Stu, do you have time for scheduled nonsense? Can we do this? All right. Here's my question for you, Keith. Here's my scheduled nonsense. When is too early to put up your Christmas decorations?
Oh, now is too early. But I'll say this. I used to be a hardcore day after Thanksgiving or that weekend guy, like no earlier than that. I've come around a little bit where like people really during the pandemic time, people started putting them up earlier and earlier.
Yeah.
And I was a little like, all right, why not? Right. If it makes you happy now, like, I don't necessarily don't go nuts yet, but like in the next couple of weeks, if you want to do it, if you want to already have them up when you have people over for Thanksgiving, have at it. It's not going to bother me at all. But here in the Smith house, we tend to do it like right after Thanksgiving.
Here's the problem that I've got with this year. Right now, Thanksgiving this year is November 28th.
Very late.
It's a late Thanksgiving.
It's the latest it can be.
Right. So I'm good with what you're saying with after Thanksgiving, but Thanksgiving last year was November 23rd. Yep. I do wonder what it's going to mean for the holiday shopping season and everything, that it's, that much shorter, but that's 5 days that we're talking about less that you get to have your Christmas stuff up. So I think this year I'm going to go and put stuff. I think I'm going to do it before Thanksgiving just because it's such a late Thanksgiving this year. I've had some people say, no, can't do it before Thanksgiving. You're not allowed to and all that. I don't know. Like, is Mariah Carey coming out before Thanksgiving or not? I think the answer should be yes, because it's such a late Thanksgiving. I think even if you are the person that says, no, it must be after Thanksgiving, I think this year is the exception because Thanksgiving is just happening too damn late.
I'm with you on that too. We had that same conversation here. We're actually gonna have people in town over Thanksgiving week. My folks are coming for a visit. Look at you. That's too early for that.
That's too early.
But
For
it's
podcast
yeah,
listeners, I put up a
I'm with
Christmas
you.
background.
If people want to go nuts and put up their decorations a little earlier this year, yeah, have at it. Because I'm with you. Yeah, you lose those few days, and then it's like because then it's like you could kind of stretch through like that first week in January, keeping them up, but then it's like you gotta like I'm climbing on the roof for 4 weeks. Like
I need time.
why?
I need time to enjoy them.
Yep. Yeah. I'm also in favor. I've already pitched to the family here. Like I want 1 year over whether it's probably more over Christmas. I'm like, let's just not do any of it and let's just go away. Like let's go somewhere.
We've talked about that, like doing like a cruise for Christmas or something like that. Because I've never done that before. And I'm like, I've always done, Christmas at home or at family's house or something. I'm like, would it be cool to do like a Christmas vacation, like a go out of town for Christmas type thing, not Chevy Chase, and do something like that. And I thought that's something that we'll try 1 year. It doesn't look like we're gonna do that this year, but maybe 1 year soon we'll try that.
Yeah, it's been an idea thrown around here in the Smith house. But here's my main takeaway. Just don't overlook Thanksgiving. It's an awesome holiday. Yeah, I love Thanksgiving. Like it's just the food and oh man, I like Thanksgiving food. It's like
I am anti-Thanksgiving.
Oh,
and I think I think for me, I'm not a huge fan of like turkey and stuffing. Like it's okay. But I've never been like, oh, I'm craving Thanksgiving food. Never been, except for the pumpkin pie. That's fantastic. But no, so Thanksgiving has always just been kind of like the precursor to Christmas. I'm always looking forward to just, getting through it. But also there's no NBA games on
that part's a bummer.
So that it's like the double whammy for me there, where at least there's football games on, but no NBA games. That part's tough too.
There's some good college this year, so you have to get your basketball fixed that way.
I'll have
to. A couple tournaments going on there. Yeah,
I will have to.
Yeah. Speaking of, that's what I'm going to go do now. I'm going to catch up on. There's a couple players I wanted to check out. So, some news-ishy stuff though. Basketball bulletin. My game notes are coming out there. My plan is to do them 5 to 6 days a week. I'm probably going to take one of the weekend days off to not do the notes each week, just to give my brain a little bit of a rest on that stuff. But we'll get those up there. My goal is to get them up by 10, 11 each morning. So that way, by the time the West Coast is up and going, they're out there and everybody can read them. So you can check those out. I always make the first game or two free to read, and then the rest you're gonna have to sign up and jump in there. But fully free was my first big board that is posted now there just in time for the start of college basketball season. So 76 players ranked in 5 different tiers of draftability from me, with some notes on some of the guys. I'll be adding to that as we go along all season long, as I watch players and build more of a book on them. I'll be adding notes with all that stuff. So I'm super excited for everybody to see that.
And that's really cool stuff that's going on over the basketball bulletin. I'll drop the link in the description down below. So make sure you guys check that out as well. Thank you again, everybody. Till next time, we'll see you and stay safe.